Hey friends, and welcome back. Today we're gonna have a look at this wonderful Super Nintendo European version, and it is technically working, but somebody took a bite out of it. It looked like a dog chewed on it or something bigger. And it's more like a try to repair the case rather than the insides. And obviously this is totally beyond something you would normally do. Normally you would just go buy a non-functional, technically non-functional Super Nintendo, swap the parts, and you're done. A Super Nintendo is not that uncommon to come by, but I think this would be a great lesson how to restore a case in extreme cases. And well, after seeing the story of the Atari 800 XL, which was restored by Pete as posted on RetroHacks back then. I put the link in the description. I think this is possible, and yeah, well, I made my mind up about how to do this, and the plan is to make a mold. Well, how do we make a mold? Well, of course we take another Super Nintendo that looks slightly better, at least on this side, so we can make a mold. And then we try to fill it up with epoxy and see how it goes, I think. Yeah, well, as I said, it's just something to see if it can be done this way. If I ever come by something more valuable that you can't just buy off the shelf and replace the case, or that's not that easily 3D printed. And yeah, we'll have a look at it. But first, let's see if it actually works. Well, I tried it out and it does work, but I want to show you. And oh yeah, this wonderful third-party controller was in the package as well. Yeah, it's not that great, but it works. So let's see. As you can see, it does work. There's nothing quite wrong. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but the artifacts on the screen, that's just the TV, that's not the unit. Yeah, it does work perfectly. There's nothing technically wrong with it. Well, it obviously needs a cleaning, even on the inside. Yeah. First we have to disassemble both of the parts. First we have to disassemble both of the Super Nintendos and see what the inside looks like and how we best approach making the mold. So let's have a look. First we need a game bit screwdriver to open up the case, which is a bit annoying because of the broken up standoffs. At least it looks to be in good condition on the inside, except for the broken off plastic parts, of course. And now we do the same with the second Super Nintendo, which will be used to create the mold. Before anything else, I used power glue on all the big cracks so they don't spread that easily anymore. And then I started working on some modeling clay to get it warm and in shape for the molding. Now I just press it firmly against the side of the good Super Nintendo and hope to get a good negative to use as a mold. Then I try it out on the damaged Super Nintendo, and after some corrections, I think it looks okay. And now I do the same for the top part of the case. And now both parts are ready and put on their side for the next part of the treatment, which is epoxy resin, to hopefully fill up all these missing parts. Looks like it wasn't as tight as I thought. After one day it looks okay, but we need to do the same for the corners.
Looks good so far, but there are still some areas I need to cover with epoxy resin. Unfortunately, after all this, it still looks pretty squishy, even after I gave it a couple more days to harden up. But let's remove the modeling clay and have a look underneath it. The plastic is so brittle that it literally falls apart under my fingers. The modeling clay is pretty hard to scrape off, so I tried it with some hot water. I didn't want to give up on the epoxy resin route just yet, but for the mold I tried some thermoplastics this time. You basically heat it up in hot water and then you can form it for a couple of minutes as long as it is still warm. This seems to work okay, so we do the same for the top side of the shell. While the thermoplastic is cooling off, let's remove some of that excess epoxy resin from before. Now it's time to get the first thermoplastic mold off. Let's see how it fits the damaged case. After getting rid of some more excess epoxy, it is a tight but okay fit. And after doing the same with the lower part of the case, it is time for the next round of, you guessed it, epoxy resin. I did a couple more rounds with the epoxy and even building a wall with the modeling clay to help the flow. But even after all this, some parts of the walls were too weak and wobbly, so there needed to be some change of plans. But first, let's get the molding of the case. For removing the thermoplastic, I just used hot water again. As you can see, there is just a giant part missing. I thought I could try epoxy one last time while building it a custom bed to flow into just for this part. Okay, let's take off the modeling clay. And did it finally work? Of course not. Rips right off. So I finally ditched the idea of only using epoxy resin. As good as it is for some parts, structural integrity is not one of it. Carrot putty, on the other hand, should be better for this, so I gave it a try. Looks good so far and feels much stronger, but we need to fill some more holes and make sure the two parts of the shell still fit together. And now we grind it all in shape, getting rid of the excess material. The walls seem to be okay so far, so now it's time to weld this broken off plastic parts back on with some acetone. Before the finishing touch, the stickers and feet need to be removed. I use lighter fluid to loosen up the adhesive. I also did this before using the acetone on the plastic parts. Sorry for the confusion. Now just some last grinding to finish up the shell for painting. Finally the case is getting its paint job. First 2 layers of white base color. Now 2 more layers of grey RAL7038. I got the color from Raphael Azenor, God I hope I didn't butcher that name, who has a great color code list for Famicom, Super Famicom, NES and Super NES on his homepage rafnet.net, which you can find below in the description. The paint has dried and it's time to reassemble the SNES and see if it still fits together. But first I glued back the stickers on the back. I forgot the feet, but put them back on later, no worries. The top needed some final adjustments for the buttons and the cover to fit back on.
So we're done, and well, it looks more like a mutant and not like the finished product I hoped it would be. You see we have all these spaces between here. We have a giant hole in here which I couldn't build up quite right, and yeah, the colors are cool. I mean, that's matching. But that's all that's good. We had some problems at the beginning with the epoxy resin. It's just not that good for building up the walls. We know that now. Then I tried some of the car putty, and that worked better for the walls. But I don't think it's an overall good thing to use when you have this little crevices all over the place. But for the majority of it, it worked pretty well. So would I think this is a failure? No. Why? Well, because this project was mainly because I wanted to learn how to do this stuff, have some experience with the materials, and see what we can do. Otherwise, this case would have been thrown in the trash, and would have just bought a replacement case or a dead N64 with a good case, and just swapped out the parts. Then would be a better looking final product, but that was not the point of the video. And well, next time I know a bit better what to do and how to build this stuff up, and I'm glad how it turned out. It's a reminder for me how things can go if you don't know what you're doing, but we're all learning, and maybe you learn some stuff from this too. Yeah, so this thing is hopefully still working. I haven't tried it out, but I think it will, and we will have a look in a second if it still runs. So while we see if this one still works, I'll let the credits roll, and we'll see us next time. Till then.